Hey builders, Mark here. In this Retro Reacts, we're going to take a look at an architecture from the Financial Times that's focusing on AWS cost optimization. Now this is from the beginning of 2017, so let's see what problem they were tackling, how they addressed it, and what we could change now given what we know about how to apply the principles of the AWS Well-Architected Framework.
Welcome to This Is My Architecture. I'm joined today by Greg from Financial Times. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you for having me.
What do Financial Times do, as if we need to ask?
So we're a global international newspaper, and we have a large website as well.
Okay, so media property. Obviously, they have a lot of the same concerns that we do, where overhead is key, and you want to make sure that you're operating efficiently, which is why we're talking about cost optimization today.
I've noticed, and also some pink papers I see on airplanes a lot as well.
Yeah, pink papers.
Now, you guys are doing some pretty innovative stuff around cost optimization. Tell us about what you were trying to solve for.
Okay, so I do like how they set this up in the video, in that the first primary question after the intro from the APN partner, and these are all AWS partner network companies, is that they say, okay, what specific problem are you trying to solve? And that's a question that I don't think gets asked often enough. We kind of get lost in the details really, really quickly. So let's hear what Financial Times is trying to tackle here.
So the biggest challenge was to try to democratize to the teams the cost of the things they were building. So we have quite a few tools, and you can look up bills on an aggregate level, but it doesn't necessarily say to an engineer that thing X is going to cost Y.
Okay, so very common problem that actually still holds today. So this was 2017, still holds today in that it's trying to get engineers to think in a cost metric as well. Normally we think performance, hopefully we're starting to think operational overhead and security concerns, but it's really tricky to get people going like, hey, if I pick this database, it's gonna cost me this much over time. Whereas I pick this other data store, then it's gonna add a little bit of work to our team, but here's the approximate cost of that versus the actual outlay. That's a difficult thing. That's not something that we train our teams on. That's not something we normally build into our culture. It seems like that's what the Financial Times is trying to highlight and address with their teams. Let's see what they've come up with.
Trying to create a feedback loop, kind of like when I get my phone bill and I go, oh, I should probably behave a little bit differently.
Yeah.
You want to give that to your developers.
So we came up with a few strategies about what we should do in terms of cost optimization. One of the biggest ones we're going to talk about today is moving to Amazon Linux, and we want to give a feedback loop to show their progress and show how much money they might save.
So how did you build that?
Okay, so it seems like, or at least I feel like, given his comment that he wants to highlight this use case of moving to Amazon Linux, is that his teams obviously weren't on that. Maybe they were on Windows before or another operating system, and they see a benefit, a tangible cost and performance benefit of going to Amazon Linux. That would be even more true today, and they probably would be including things like Graviton in there, and that's why that would be, Amazon Linux has phenomenal support for Graviton, the ARM-based processor, and those instances tend to give you, for most workloads, better performance per cost, not better performance overall, but better performance for the cost that you're outlaying. So this is a great exercise in principle. Again, the specific use case might not be what we're looking at a few years later, but let's see how they created this feedback loop.
Process.
So basically we use Cloud Health. We have a Lambda function, and from Cloud Health we get the costs. So
Cloud Health is a third-party service. It was a third-party service. It may still be up and running, but just insert your billing partner of choice here. If you guys follow Corey Quinn online at all, you'll know that AWS billing is a challenge, to say the least. Trying to get the actual costs from AWS themselves programmatically is a pain in the you-know-what. So if you do have a third-party partner, that makes sense to leverage to get that out and say, hey, I just spun up this workload. How much did it cost me?
Lambda function here that will create a JSON blob and put it into S3, and basically that JSON is costs by team.
So I didn't even remember that icon was the S3 icon, and it still is. This is part of those series of weird abstract ones, I think, and they've moved away from them to the nicer blocks. But so basically that Lambda function is just getting the billing data from the partner so in a better format, and making sure that it's normalized into JSON by team and dropping in. So a little bit of intelligence in there, but I love Lambdas for this. Just basically smoothing out a data flow, very similar, to where we use it for Kinesis, where we can use it in Dynamo, things like that. It's just taking, okay, we get the data in a little weirdness here, and we want to smooth it out a bit, so we're pushing that through a Lambda on a regular basis. You could schedule it through cron, so it's doing constantly, or from CloudWatch Events or EventBridge, and dumping that data into S3.
And then we have a dashboard There's basically some JavaScript and some HTML that sucks the JSON out and displays cost by team or cost by program collections of teams.
So I'm guessing these get put up on big screens in the office?
Yeah, we have them around the office. Most teams have monitoring screens or build screens where they might put build pipelines, they might put their alerts up in their dashboards, and some of them also might put their costs up there.
So interesting. So they're just really pulling that data out from JSON, from the JSON constructs they jumped into S3, and they have a little HTML and JavaScript app that then displays it nicely for that team, and then sort of the aggregate of the team of teams, and they put that in with their other operational metrics. Really super simple solution. Let's see if there's anything more here before I say where I think I would make changes today.
So this is a super elegant solution you built here because there's no servers here. There's very few moving parts, so you're not actually spending a lot of time maintaining this.
Excellent point is that it's all serverless. It's event-driven essentially, or at least cron job-driven, which means the cost of the solution for cost monitoring is actually constrained, but also very secure, very reliable.
You're letting your
low
developers
overhead.
focus on this, but the interesting thing you've got here is you've got like different views. So you're not just showing them what their spend is, you're showing how they're going and what they could be.
Yeah, so three parts to this. One of them is their aggregate spend in terms of all the different services they're using, which I haven't drawn, but what I
Interesting. So again, good point here from the AWS side of things is that they're not just saying you spent X, they're saying you spent X and that is bigger or lower than last time. Here's how you're going towards your targets.
drawn is their Amazon Linux migration. So they have a little line chart by time, which gives them a percentage of Amazon Linux.
And they're tracking a specific goal. So here he's talking about that because of that Amazon Linux migration goal, they're actually tracking that over time to see, hey, you're 80% migrated, you're 90% migrated. So you can see if your efforts are being rewarded, and you can see where the team is, and if you need to put a little more power, a little more juice behind that effort.
Percentage of not Amazon Linux, depending which way you want to look at it. And then on the right-hand side to that is a bar graph of in dollar terms for how much money they still might save by migrating.
So
Oh, interesting. Then they also, that left to save is how much you might save if you boosted that 70 or 80% migrated all the way to 100, which is good. That's a very tangible thing, and that's what we need to put in front of people is contextually, hey, this is what you could be doing. Here's what you're doing now. Here's what you could be doing. Let's put in that effort if it's worth it.
that's a strong focus, obviously, for your organization. If you can move on to Amazon Linux, there's real dollar savings to be had. So you're incentivizing your teams by just showing them, hey, if you spend a little bit of time here, this is your result.
So
I don't think that's an incentive. I think it's awareness. Incentive is, well, it could be an incentive. It really depends if they care about saving that money or not and how big that money is. I think, the incentivization would work really well if you could highlight how much that would allow them to focus on other things, or, what that actual driver is. Just showing the money left might not be the best motivation, but I'm not a social psychologist.
important to make this simple to use. We didn't want teams to have to log into too many things or click too many ways or get an email report. We wanted a really simple thing they could put up and just get instant feedback on.
That's a really key point here from the Financial Times, is that they didn't want like an emailed report. They didn't want them to have to log into something. They wanted it really just like in their face, apparent, so that it made it easy and it was a kind of a constant awareness.
And also we want to make the message really, really simple, so it's quite obvious that if you do this, this is what will happen.
Yeah, so you see the result. And I'm guessing a little bit of friendly rivalry between teams?
Yeah, we like to get teams to compete with each other.
So putting a little competition in place is always good. It motivates people. They like that aspect. Kind of gets a good culture built up as well, as long as it's friendly.
Might be occasional name and shame with some teams who might not be moving.
Not a big fan of name and shame, especially coming from the security side, but I get it. It's a natural reaction.
We might like.
Well, you can see it on the screen and it's up in pixels, so there's no arguing the toss about it.
No.
And this gets refreshed on a pretty regular basis so people can see what's going on?
Yes, the billing granularity tends to be around hourly, but by the time that these systems all munch together, it tends to be by the day.
So here's a big challenge with this system, is that because of the way billing data is stored and then a third party processing it, they're only getting these updates every day, which, the shorter a feedback loop is, the better it is, because you have a more direct tie to your action. It's really hard to say, hey, yesterday you did this, and to get that visceral feeling. You want it ideally to have it as, you clicked, here's what it was. That's not possible with the way the billing infrastructure works even today, but you could speed it up faster than a day.
So teams often can do it, they can do some work during one day and then come in the next morning and they can see the results of that.
Brilliant. Sounds fantastic.
Okay, so not bad. Overall solution, really good. I like the fact that they have a very clear goal, that they're trying to show those metrics to help the teams make better decisions, which is a core part of the AWS Well-Architected Framework. Serverless design here, they're using Lambda and S3. That's great. They do have a third-party partner in place for correlating that financial information. Totally get it. It's really hard even today to get that information programmatically out of AWS, though it's possible. The one thing I would switch is they made a custom dashboard. You don't actually have to do that. What you could do is use QuickSight. QuickSight will leave the data right in S3 as it is, and you can set it up to have a lot of really great visualizations. And now with QuickSight Q, which allows you to ask questions in natural language, you can actually interrogate that data even further. So while you could show just a very simple dashboard of like, here's our progress over time, with QuickSight, you could leverage additional visualizations, additional ways to view that data, but then look at that natural language questioning of saying, hey, how are we doing, in the month of January across teams in this sector for migration project A or for moving to serverless designs in B. So you get a little more richness without actually doing any programming yourself. And I think that's really key is once you build a solution like this, like that dashboarding, even though here it was in 2017, oh, it's very simple, just a little HTML and CSS to show the things. That's another thing you need to maintain. And it needs to be running somewhere. So that was running somewhere and they didn't talk about that, even though you could probably run that out of an S3 bucket itself. I'd much rather take a highly managed service because then as AWS makes improvements to something like QuickSight, I get advantage. I get that right off the bat. And if this data set grew too big, I could always shove Amazon and Athena in front of it to get a customized slice of that data set while keeping it all serverless, keeping it all event driven. But I like the idea, I like the concept here. They're trying to build metrics around a feedback loop to help teams make intelligent decisions about their design choices. That is absolutely what the AWS Well-Architected Framework was about in the beginning and still is about today. Cost optimization is often overlooked until you get a bill. And I like this feedback in the middle. I would make a couple tweaks, but overall really solid and trailblazing for the day. You didn't see much of this back in 2017, so kudos to the Financial Times. And builders, I'll see you in the next video.